Hi, my name is Nurul Iwana Patricia binti Arif Fazila, metric number 1202921. Introduction to Religion versus Terrorism. In the world nowadays, religion is known as our belief to a system or something that we hold on to in our principle of life. It will guide us all the way along our life. We will practice our daily life with the guidance and that we learn and we believe that is true and will help us in our daily life. As for terrorism, terrorism is the act of excessive and fanatic of something or system. The one who practices the act of terrorism has an extreme belief, and everyone that have contradict belief from them will be in danger. We can see some example of terrorism in incident such as 9/11 plane crash in America, Zionist terrorism toward Palestine, and the Munich Olympics in 1972. In this paper, we will do some research about religion versus terrorism. Next, let's go to Western scholar opinion of religion. Religion comprised of a certain rules that needs to be upheld by their believer as religion uh, is also known as belief. There are also a lot of definition that we could find and interpret by some of the scholar. Let us take some several definition of religion by some of the scholar that have done their research in religion. First one is Edward B. Tyler, define religion as in his book Primitive Culture as the belief in spiritual beings. In the Golden Book, James George Fraser wrote the definition of religion from his point of view was a propitiation or conciliation of power superior to man which are believed to direct and control the course of nature and of human life. A more distinguished definition made by one scholar named Emil Durkheim in his book The Elementary Form of Religious Life is that a religion is unified system of belief and practices relative to sacred things, that is to say things that set apart and forbidden. Other than that, stated in book named Religion as a Cultural System, written by Clifford Geertz, religion is a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, persuasive, and long-lasting modes and motivation. Religion, like culture, is a symbolic transformation of experience was another decent definition of religion that was stated in Thomas F. Odia writing in the Sociology of Religion. Catherine L. Albanese defined religion as a system or a system of symbol that presenting creed, code, and cultures by means of which people or a community that orient themselves in the world with reference to both ordinary and extraordinary power, meanings, and values in his writing, America, Religions and Religion. Religion is a means to ultimate transformation was a definition that stated by Frederick Strang in Understanding Religious Life. Moreover, in varieties of spiritual experience shown in New Confucian Discourse, Joseph Adler defined religion as a mean of ultimate transformation and or orientation. As we can see, there were a lot of definition of religion that we could find in various of sources. To conclude, the most of the Western scholar opinion on religion is a spiritual, human controller, propitiation of power, a guidance, a system of symbol, and a transformation on their follower. Western scholars have a good opinion on definition of religion. Next, we go to Islam definition of religion. Islam also have their own definition of religion. Deen is the term in Arabic which means religion. Muslim scholar Imam Said Naqib Al-Atas said that he prefer use the word deen because the word religion cannot convey the correct message about Islam. In Islam, there are Arkanuddin or the five pillars of religion that are the form of submission or obedience to God. The five pillars of religion are Shahada, Salat, which is five prayers times a day, fasting during the month of Ramadan, pay zakat, and do Hajj at Mecca. These practices are the form of practices that Muslims do and define their followers' relationship to God. Other than that, there are also six pillars of faith. There is belief in Allah, belief in angels, belief in prophets and messenger, belief in holy books, belief in the day of judgment, and the last one is belief in predestination. All Muslims are supposed to believe in all of the six pillars of faith. As to my understanding of what religion is, that a religion is something that we put our faith and do what we believe in. We need to act according to our religion told us to do to be a good follower. Then we could be calm in our life. If we do follow a good religion and a true religion, then we will be guided through all of our life. Thank you.
My name is Nur Iza Atira binti Mawiyah and my metric number is 1201929. Okay, now we go to the next chapter, which is chapter 2, what is terrorism? Many and Many new and powerful weapons have been created in this age of growing complexity and technology. As well as we know, a country may have a great deal of violence. Palestine, Ukraine, Syria, and the other nations have all been subjected to extreme violence to the point of ruin. Even yet, a small percentage of the population is unaware of the actual meaning or impact of terrorism. Many academics have been attempting of comprehend and define terrorism for some time. This commitment is apparent in the substantial amount of literature they have published on the subject. Despite the fact that this corpus of literature shed light on crucial phase of terrorism, none of them address the essence of terrorism. The writer definitions and terrorism are found on their political rhetoric rather than their intellectual understanding of the phenomenon. They consider terrorism to be an act of threatening to destroy a specific target in order to achieve political goal. And terrorism, according to the Tony Cody, is the systematic use of violence against non-combatants in nonsense in a specific sense or their property for political goals. Cody also refers to his term as tactical because the terrorism act is focused toward non-combatants. Second, he contends that a tactical definitional approach is hampered by the fact that the idea of the non-combatant in the definition has to be clarified. And now we go to the next. Why is terrorism is occur? The theory of contagion is used to explain why the incidence of terrorism in one nation frequently leads directly or indirectly to additional terrorism in the other countries, whether by the same organizations or by second generation organizations or imitators. According to Crenshaw, attitudes and ideas that support terrorism are disseminated transnationally. According to the Radley, informational flows thus appear to assist militants or dissatisfied people or organizations in today's international system in a variety of ways. The terrorist broad media coverage draws attention to the group cause, and as a greater segment of society is exposed to media coverage, knowledge about specific terrorist methods and plans is conveyed globally. According to Crenshaw, the origins of terrorists in many national settings are not entirely indigenous, and hence even in one country may inspire imitations. Despite this, throughout the most majority of human history, physical isolation has prevented mass violence amongst individuals separated by the greatest distance in social space. It was unthinkable, no physical contact, no violence. In addition, there are several viewpoints on the cause of terrorism. They include demographic, economical, and political employment and land tenure issues are examples of socio-economic concerns. Disenfranchisement, political intolerance, citizen, ethnic strife, religious conflict, territorial conflict, unequal distribution or lack of access to resources, and even distribution are examples of political variables. So it is clear that the factor and why um, this terrorism occur that cause terrorism are due to the attitude of a faction that wants to expand their territory, and the other factors that cause terrorism are religious, political, and so on. And now we move to the effects of terrorism. Terrorism or violence is an act that has a negative impact on both society and the environment. Terrorism risk is analogous in many respects to the risk of natural disasters such as flood, earthquakes, hurricanes, and storms. All of these disasters have significant loss potential and have the capacity to disrupt whole economies. The 9/11 assaults, for example, demonstrated that terrorism poses a potentially catastrophic risk. In fact, terrorism has vast ramifications and has far-reaching effects for the collective peace and security of entire planet. This is because national borders are becoming increasingly hazy and harder to discern. In effect, nationals for each nation state move to the other part of the world. As a result, every terrorist attack in any area of the world will undoubtedly have an impact on the other parts of the world. Furthermore, the surge of refugees caused by such terrorist activities will have a severe influence on the host country's economy. Last but not least, this demonstrates that the deciding literature has frequently indicated a negative effect of terrorism on many economic variables despite the lack of the precise equilibrium model that generates such an effect. We put the economic mood's capacity to anticipate macroeconomic indicators to the test, as well as the belief that terrorism influences sentiments. If economic sentiments are generally sensitive to terrorism activities, it might be missing link that explains terrorism's negative economic impact. Furthermore, this demonstrates that many lives and assets has been lost, as well as a considerable number of residents who have been homeless. Families have experienced the loss of loved one. Many ladies have become widows in recent years. Children become orphans with no future prospect, and the administration has made a valiant effort to address the issue posed by terrorism and insecurity in the nation and put an end to them. But the rate of terrorism and insecurity and the countries continue to be frightening. As a result, terrorism impact on a country, society, and the world is undeniable negative. Terrorism, on the other hand, should be avoided to ensure that the environment is not destroyed or that property, life, body, and not harmed.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Nabila binti Muhammad Nazir. My metric number is 1202913. Let's move to the history of terrorism. The word terrorism was first popularized during the French Revolution. In contrast to its contemporary usage, at that time terrorism had a definite positive connotation, established order during the period of turbulent anarchy and unrest that opposed the uprising of 1789 and indeed many other revolutions. Regime dictatorship is an instrument of government run by the newly formed revolutionary state. The designed to consolidate the new power of government by intimidating counter-revolutionaries, subversive, and all dissidents. Others considered the new regime to be enemies of the people. The Revolutionary Public Security Committee and the Judiciary People's Court in modern vernacular times were thus given broad powers for arrest and trial, openly executed by guillotines, punished for the crime of treason. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw the emergence of several international terrorist movements. Examples of Russian populists and French and Italian anarchists spawned imitators in Balkans, Armenia, India, and elsewhere. The decade before World War I was a time of profound political and economic change. This was a long period of industrial revolution and the expansion of capitalism that saw the apogee of some colonial governments such as France, Britain, Russia, and the governments of others, Australia and Turkey. Lenin used the term imperialism to describe the expansionist tendency that overshadowed the Great Empire, which he saw as the final phase of capitalism. The balance of power underlying the other of Westphalia collapsed with the Great War 1914 until 1918, which also marked the end or beginning of the end of European world hegemony, which conclusively died out in 1945. It was a system, moreover powerless to destroy the embryonic nationalism that threatened it. From a theoretical perspective, Karl Hansen of the German radicals 1809 until 1818 was the early initiator of terrorism as a means legitimate revolutionary struggle, written at the peak of fever after the revolution of 1848. His essay The More developed far on the concept of tyrannicide. When our enemies have taught us to do so, we regard it as the principle of murder. Both individual as well as the masses are essential needs and instruments in the making of history. Assuming the apostolic role, Hansen integrated the philosophy of tyrannicide, the emergence democratic society, and revolutionary ideology. Like champion of tyrannicide, Hansen seeks to reconcile principles of traditional morality. The result is a mess, but at least Hansen is one founder of the modern philosophy of terrorism, where the whole population and no longer just a country is considered legitimate target. It was also one of the first to recognize the terrifying potential of technology in the hands of terrorists, allow small groups of individuals to causing great damage to the urban environment. Hansen himself never applied his principles, and terrorist attacks during the first half of the century, the 19th, never reached the scale he imagined. Many followed him. Hansen made a mistake by linking terrorism with mass destruction. However, until now, when terrorism attacks the government through the civilian population, then society as a whole generally does not targeted for their own benefit, except by state terrorism. The terror wave of 1870 until 1914 ended with the consequence of countless murders. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife on 28 June 1914 in Sarajevo triggered one of the largest conflicts in history, which later became known as Great War. Murder is a job not earned. which home society in general automatically associates terrorism. As that happening today with Islamists, but from revolutionaries, Serbian nationalists. The era of anarchist terrorism is over. That nationalism has only just begun. The murder was not causing war, but giving a spark turned it on. In the 1930, the meaning of terrorism was applied specifically on the authoritarian dictatorship of the Italian fascists. The Nazis 24 Germany and Stalinist regime by dictatorial leaders them against their own citizens. After World War II, terrorism used to referring the brutal rebellion that was demanded by indigenous nationalists or anti-colonial groups appear in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East in the late of 1940 and 1950 to oppose the European powers that is in progress. Countries like Israel, Kenya, Cyprus, and Algeria, for example, all independents, they are, at least in part for nationalists, political movements who use terrorists against colonial powers. It was also during this period that the political right was the so-called power of freedom came into fashion as a result of the political legitimacy that the international community with his sympathy and support was actively approached by many of these movements is given to the struggle for national liberation and self-determination. The sympathy and support of the rebels extended to the segment the inhabitants of the colonial state itself, which created the need for a more neutral and political neutral language, more neutral than terrorists and terrorism, for depicting revolutionaries and violence. They are do what he thinks to justify the war of liberation. Many third world countries, new and communist bloc countries, also in particular adopt everyday language on the grounds that anyone or any movement that is at war against colonialism and or Western domination cannot describe as terrorist but actually considered as a freedom hunter. Although ethno-nationalists, revolutionary thinker or separatist and revolutionary ideologies continue to form our most basic understanding of the term, such soon terrorism used to 26 showing a broader and less obvious phenomenon. In the early 1980, for example, terrorism was considered a calculated means of confusing the West as part of a broader global conspiracy. Thus, in the 1990, terrorism became included by some analysts in the edge area phenomenon. Thus, the last term comes to use to indicate a threat to stability, nation-state by non-state actors and processes and non-governmental organizations, to illustrate violence that affects a very large area or urban areas where control has shifted from legitimate and government to a new half political, half criminal power, or just for a common group within one category of various conflicts around the world that does not begin in accordance with the accepted notion of war traditionally as a battle between armed forces from two or more established countries, but even involve irregular forces as one or more of the fighters. Terrorism has changed its meaning again from individual phenomenon of subnational violence to one of some element or part of a broader pattern, non-state conflict. The terrorist attacks of 11 September 2001 are inevitable redefining terrorism. On that day, 19 terrorists belong to the group named himself Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda hijacked four plane passengers as soon as they take off from the airport in Boston, Newark, New Jersey, and Washington. Two from the plane then deliberately flew to the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. Both structures collapsed as soon after. The third plane, 27, also violated the Pentagon, where the Department of Defense, the US, is damaging the southwest side of the building. Why that is, the passengers on the fourth plane became aware of another attack and fought to subdue the hijackers. In the next short distance, the plane spun out of control and crashed into farms in rural Pennsylvania. Almost 3,000 of people were killed in the attack. To place that victims died in perspective, Throughout the 20th century, no more than 14 terrorist incidents have been killed more than 100 people. And until 9th of November, it was not there have been terrorist operations that have killed more than 500 people. Among those killed were the surrounding residents 80 different countries that speak the number. The biggest casualties so far are US citizens. Indeed, more than twice as many Americans died on 9 November that was killed by terrorists since 1998, the year recognized as a sign of emergence modern international terrorism. The impact of the 9 November events then made the American president at the time, Bush, declared war against terrorism. In his speech, he stated, "Our nation is horrified." He continued, "But it will not terrorize." But when the president addressed the meeting special joint of the U.S. Congress on 20 September 2001, he repeatedly used the word terror, that is, a state of threat or extreme fear. According to the definition or idea from the political phenomenon of terrorism, war, the fight against terror, the famous president said, begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there. Al-Qaeda, with its leader Osama bin Laden being the target, the United States is considered responsible for the event of the attack. America thinks that Saddam Hussein, the then president of Iraq, had a stake 28 in such events, then justified the invasion. They went to Iraq in 2003. Bush considered countries like Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as crime and is considered to hate U.S. freedom and threatening the U.S. with weapons of mass destruction they have. The war on terrorism in the 21st century, later redefined by Bush as holy war, fighting evil in the understanding of linguist Stanford University Geoffrey Number, to include dark forces that threaten civilization and fear which he caused.
Beginning in the 5th century, the history of Christianity and the development of the teaching in the Western world has been an approach to violence in the name of religion. It began when Bishop Augustine of Hippo issued that the first religious war order in which he opposed Christians considered heretic in North Africa. Donatus Magnus is the founder of the Donatus group, has been disputed the position of the church hierarchy. Moreover, they think that the role of the church institution is not necessary because every believer is able to receive guidance from God without the need of a religious as an intermediary will easily manipulate the power it possesses. Augustine felt this view should be eradicated by force. He used the parable of the great banquet in the New Covenant. Matthew has a conclusion that justified the use of punishment and violence as education to the group. Hence, the history of violence for the first time in the name of Christianity because of the same argument the Roman founder used in punishing pagan, the Spanish Inquisition against those considered to have prevented religion as well as church violence against Native Americans who did not want to change their faith. Furthermore, in Max Weber's view, religious teaching have the potential to spread hate and violence and anger of the follower of a religion on an issue. Moreover, he argued that the prophet spread the religion through propaganda so that the society feel frustrated with life and in turn clung to the belief they taught. Feeling of frustration and hate are made as a potential cause to attract the believer, which in turn channel into the attitude and behavior of the believer. In addition, a movement introduced by Herbert Spencer called social Darwinism, incorporating Darwin's view of biology with the human social environment, has impact on the study of religion as well as its relationship to terrorism. The effect of religious teaching on the psychology of its adherents is seen to make a person fanatical and change from a devout believer to a terrorist. The proponent of modern atheism, Friedrich Nietzsche, claimed that the inherent religious neurosis could lead to the dangerous thing.
Religion was seen to cause cruelty, in which the sacrifice of believers to the god they worship. They were willing to kill each other. In his opinion, a god who must sacrifice even he predicted theism in Europe would not has long, because religion and God would never be able to satisfy human desire, even instead it only cause unrest and cruelty. Moreover, Richard Dawkins also sees religion as a source of extreme spirit that causes violence against others. Newspaper clipping on suicide bomber case are prime example that he made to show religion is one of the main factors involved in the human violence. In addition, he is of the view that the war on terrorism should be turned into a war on religion. The phrase here is used as an argument that religion can cause its followers to do abominable things considered noble. Next, Muslims are considered as bloodthirsty human beings in the Atheist Manifesto written by Michael Onfroy, and jihad is called holy war. He interprets jihad is killing those who different religion. The author also accuses the concept of Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb, which is discussed in the work fit with the idea of Hitler ideas. The extreme negative thinking of this work also comment that Jews are the religion that founded the Holy War. In this war, they kill people of different religion in the name of God, while the view of Christianity founded hatred against the Jew. However, some religion figures, especially in the West, are working hard to deal directly with the issue that create harmony without violence between religions. For example, a modern-century Christian theological figure, Hans Kung, considered that the above claims were incorrect as a whole and not even incorrect. In his opinion, the discussion should first look at the position of the teaching of the religion itself. Based on his study of the history of religion, he concluded that every religion has a good side and a bad side. Stated in his entitled Global Responsibility, he stated that
the question of truth and falsehood cannot be dismissed in a religion, in any religion. Think of all that is taught and practiced in the name of the religion. There is no innocent religion. All religions have their plus and they also have their minus.
according to his opinion, every religion has a positive and negative angle. On the positive angle, religion contribute the development of progressive and quality life, such as tolerance, freedom, mutual respect, promoting social relation and world peace. While on the negative side of religion, in ancient time proved more on the nature of tyranny. The effect of this caused the society to be intolerant, narrow-minded, and to cause concern to society about its role and punishment. It allows humans to do immoral things and provoke war with each other. In conclusion, most of the old history has led to the connection between religion and terrorism. So it is clear from the argument above that religion is also related to terrorism. But the question is, does the matter continue until the era of globalization today? This question is difficult to answer for every religion in general, even more so nowadays. There are many political connections and abuse of power that are also linked to the occurrence of violence in the world. Islam is a religion that spread the element of poor value and educate people to continue to be civilized on the right path. Allah has sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a messenger who brought the teaching of Islam full of rahmat for all the world, has been written in the Al-Quran in Surah Al-Anbiya verse 107, which means, and we have not sent you Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam except as a mercy to the world. Based on Al-Qurtubi, Mufassirin, and Al-Tabari, this verse of Al-Quran not only carries the meaning of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam bring mercy only to Muslim, but also for those who are not Muslim, while that is every human being gets good with the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, it is proven that the advent of Islam is to convey the correct guidance and spread love through dialogue between religions and other nations is not clash or conflict with other civilization. As written in Quran Surah Al-Hujurat verse 13, which mean, O mankind, we have created you male and female and made you people and tribes that you may know one each other. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and aware. Therefore, according to the verse just now, it is clear that Islam emphasizes cooperation and harmony between each other regardless of any difference. In addition, the relationship and interaction between other religion, culture, and civilization is very important to form world harmony and peace without any violence. If everyone is open in interreligious dialogue, violence can be prevented because of the existence of most religions in the world call on every believer to spread love.
As we can see on the slide, it is an evident an example about Islam, Christian, Hinduism that spread love.
In conclusion, the main thing is communication and understanding each other. So it is clear that interfaith dialogue can prevent terrorism. If understanding can be built, then unity will be created and violence can be avoided because all religions can reach a common understanding with each other. That's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, religion versus terrorism is very close related, but people who have a religion are not terrorists. This is because terrorism carries a sense of weakness, indiscriminate violence or brutality in its most common usage. This is because terrorism is the result of a person who has an evil mindset and enjoys oppressing the weak, as well as a greedy attitude in which they seek to expand their reign by removing or battling others in order to take their position or place. It was not the same as religion. In fact, this is due to the fact that religion has ability to lead a person to virtue. People that are devout in their faith will strive to improve in others, to continue doing good and avoid doing bad. Religion is undeniably vital and it plays a critical role in propelling a person toward glory and holiness. Religion also provides individuals with a great deal of direction in order to ensure that they stay on the correct track. This is because religion lends meaning to human existence by establishing goals and value system that may or may not apply to all aspects of a person's life. A goals-based approach offers a wide, unified framework for reflecting the changing character of religion in people's life. In offer empirical investigations on the measurements of spirituality and religion via human aspiration. As a result, it is apparent that a religiously strong individual would not become a terrorist unless he is already impacted by an environment that drives him to evil. Furthermore, there are recommendations and points of view that the government should expand its military capabilities in order to combat crimes and terrorism which may destroy property, the environment, society, and even life. Besides, the administration must strengthen its position by creating strong connection with significant international nations. This is to see if a government from a country with a good and tight links with other great countries can help a country get support. If a country is attacked, for example, other countries may be able to assist in the defeat of the adversary. Moreover, if a government has excellent ties with other nations, the country will be peaceful and strong in terms of security, and economic activity will rise when there is an interchange of products with goods accessible in other countries. Close link between governments will protect a country from destroying itself and may even lead to good. It is also directly tied to religion, that religion leads to a society's and country's goodwill and peace. Furthermore, religion strongly opposes terrorism. Last but not least, in the fight against evil, we must all work together, since evil has many negative consequences that may spread a race, a family, and a community. As a result, a negative which, just like a terrorist, should be avoided, and one should never have such a poor attitude, since it is enough to put oneself and others at a severe disadvantage.